Hey everyone, so if you guys have watched my previous video, you know that I recently created an office for myself that was shared with the home gym, but in this video I moved everything into a separate room and I'm going to be showing you guys a few updates that I did to elevate the space, as well as a really cool accent wall. So if you guys are interested, please keep on watching. Before I begin any project, I really want to talk about the inspiration because it's an important part of my creative process and it's basically where I get all my ideas from. So this wall here is called a board and batten wall, and these two are pictures that I was immediately drawn to, but I ended up deciding on a more grid pattern like these that you're seeing right here. Step one is to figure out all of the measurements for your specific wall. The wall that I was doing this on measured 11 foot 10 inches by 6 foot 11 inches. And I decided on having 5 vertical elements, just like you can see here, and they are 31 and 5/8 inches apart. And for my horizontal pieces, I decided on having those 23 inches apart. A quick disclaimer about the measurements is that no wall in any house is 100% straight and accurate. So I highly recommend double checking all of your measurements on exactly where you're going to position them on your wall, because they might be a couple fractions of an inch off. So make sure to double check all of your measurements with your actual physical wall. For the material, I'm using primed MDF boards. These are basically boards that on one side is the bare normal MDF and on the other side it's sealed and painted white. Everything that I use is always linked down below, but here's a quick screenshot of the exact ones that I used. They were 3.5 inches wide and 7 feet long. I am now transferring all of my measurements onto my MDF board, just marking them all out with a pencil and using a T-square to make sure everything was nice and straight. Time for step 2, which is cutting all of your pieces. You have a couple options when it comes to this. The first one is a very small, like handheld saw and a piece of wood on its edge to make sure that it's cutting straight. This honestly takes a little while and a lot of physical effort, but it does get the job done. Another option that you have is also a handheld saw, but this one is a lot bigger and much stronger. This one is much better than the smaller one, gets the job done faster. You could also use a power tool like a circle saw, but let's be honest, those are scary to use, so I just stuck with the other ones. I wanted to show you guys what I did in the case where I didn't have a piece that was long enough for one of my measurements. I just took the 2 shorter pieces and some wood glue. You just smear some on one end and stick them together. I filled in the gap with even more glue, and then I just let them dry completely with 2 weights on the sides that's pushing them together so that they dry really strong. The next day, once they were dry, I took some joint compound and I filled in the gap in between them just to make it extremely seamless. And then once that dried, I went in with some sandpaper again to just make it nice and smooth. And that's what I did if I didn't have a piece that was long enough. Now that you have all your pieces cut out, step 3 is to do the first coat of paint on everything. I'm using the same color as in my last video. It's called Pine Forest, and you can see me here using one of the smaller bottles of paint, but I recommend you getting a full gallon because I needed to go back and get more. This is me doing the first coat on my wall. Don't worry if it's splotchy, we're going to come back and do a second coat, but this is what it looked like. For painting the boards, I propped them up on these 2 pieces of wood so that I could easily reach like the sides, and I'm also using a mini roller, which made the process go a lot faster and it gave a nice finish to the paint as well. This is what they all look like with the first coat of paint on, and I let everything completely dry for step 4, which is attaching it all to the wall. So there's a few options for this as well. I used this construction adhesive, which is called Liquid Nails. It's just a very strong glue that adheres to all surfaces. You just pop that into a caulk gun and it will squeeze out from the top. And then you could also use this machine that's called a brad nailer. This basically shoots out small, tiny nails into your project at a very high speed and intensity. I unfortunately could not use this because I didn't have an air compressor, but I highly recommend it because because it would make the process go a lot faster. But unfortunately, I had to result in just normal traditional nails and a hammer. These are the ones that I used. Make sure that they're a length that goes through your material. So 2 inches is usually a safe bet to go with. I've seen people just use the construction adhesive. Some people just use the nails. Some people use both. I decided to stay safe and use both. So that's what I'm gonna recommend because that's what worked for me. So you go ahead and just put a little bit of glue on the back of your pieces, and then stick it on your wall, apply some pressure, and then secure it with a few nails. We didn't do many at all. All we did was maybe 2 in the middle, 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And then we just repeated that process for all of our separate pieces. During this process, I was going in with that joint compound and filling in all of the connection parts that you see here. I wanted to fill in all the gaps because I wanted everything to just look very smooth. And once those were dry, I went again with the sandpaper to get any of the extra off. Another disclaimer about the walls, like I said, no wall is completely straight, so be prepared to have some pieces that are either a little bit raised, a little bit bent. You cannot see these at all when looking them straight on, so I wouldn't worry about them. This is just because the wall is not straight. The final step is to give it its last coat of paint. So I went ahead and just washed off any residue or dust that was left on the wall and painted over it with one last coat. And that's it. That's how I made my board and batten accent wall. Adding knobs or handles to a dresser can really change the look of it, so that's what I did with my plain white dresser. The first thing that I needed to do was measure out the face of my drawers, and then once I had those measurements, I translated that onto a sheet of paper. I have this thin trace paper, and then I just cut it out, and this makes it really easy to find the exact center point of our drawers. You can just fold it both ways, and then once you unfold it, you have the exact center of your drawer. Now by taking the handle, you're gonna measure the length of the middle of the 2 holes, and mine was exactly 5 inches. So I took that measurement and did 2.5 inches on both sides of my center point. In order to get a better image of where the handles would land, I placed them on the 2 points that I just marked and traced out the entire circles. Now this is what it looked like, and I'm taking my pencil and just poking a little hole through those center circles so that when we tape them onto our drawers like this, we have a little hole where we could mark with our pencil on our drawer where we need to drill our holes. Now you could use this template on all of your drawers, which makes it really easy so that you don't have to remeasure every single time. Once you're done, you can go ahead and get a drill bit that is appropriate size for your handles and drill through your drawers. When I was done drilling one of the holes, I realized that the screw that the handles came with were a little bit too long. So I solved this by getting a little hex nut and screwing it onto there and then placing it through the back of the drawer and then connecting the handle from the front. And what that did was allowed everything to be nice and snug without needing to cut down any of my screws. I then used that one hole as reference to make my second hole because you want to always double check that your pencil marks are right. Mine was a little bit off, but then once you screw on all of your handles, this is how mine came out. For this coaster, you're gonna need some type of string. Macrame is recommended, but anything that's pretty thick, like this white one, should work. Now you're going to cut one piece that measures 60 inches and then 5 pieces that measure 30 inches. Taking your long 60-inch piece, you're gonna create a loop just like this. Then taking one of your short 30-inch pieces, you're gonna fold it in half, and then taking that loop at the top, you're going to put it under your original loop, pull the loose ends through it, and pull tight. And you're gonna repeat this knot for all 5 of your 30-inch pieces. So now what you have is a short end, your loop, the pieces that you tied onto the loop, and a long end. You're gonna pull on that long end so that all of those knots form a little center circle. This is what it should look like. Now, this strand right here is that long strand of the 60-inch pieces. This is where all the knots are gonna go around. So you pull it over the first strand that you're working on, and then with the short end, you're gonna create a number 4, just like I'm doing here. Then you're gonna pull that end underneath that 4 and tie a knot. And you're gonna repeat this process twice for every single strand that you go through. It's a little bit difficult describing these things with words, but hopefully by watching the video, you can understand what I'm doing. Now all you need to do is go around in a circle repeating these same steps. If you find a little gap just like this one here, the way to fix that is by cutting a separate piece of string that measures like 24 to 26 inches, and you can basically create the knot we did when we first started this. So you just fold it in half, put it under that long anchor strand, the 60-inch, and just tie a knot just like I'm doing here, and that will fill in the gap. And you can add however many you need as you go. So once I was done, I made it about 4 inches wide, and how to end this is that taking that long strand that all the knots were going around, you can just tuck it behind, tie a knot, and then cut it, and then you can also do the same with the beginning strand. Now you can go ahead and trim all the surrounding string to all the same length, and then take either a brush, a cat brush, or a comb to go ahead and brush out all of these little strands on the sides to kind of fluff them out. I gave it one final trim, and this is what my coaster looked like. It's a perfect accessory for any side table. I also made this side table and added it instead of the one that used to be there, if you guys watched my last video. I also added a gold lamp to this corner. That's all that I have for you guys for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed my updated office. Please don't forget to comment down below what you thought about it and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.